Okay, hello everybody. This is Paltas Error Instruments, and we're gonna make today something really cool. It's called the blind noise. It's a small touchable synthesizer, and you see him over here. Yes, this is it. And it's not so difficult to make this one. We're gonna do every step in this video, and my colleague Avius is here. Hello, Avius.
Hello.
Hello. So you're gonna do every step and that you can find in the DIY kit. Okay, success.
Okay, hello people. I'm going to show you how to make this module step by step. I have the manual or the guide here with the BOM list on there, and we're gonna follow every part of the list from top to bottom. So we're gonna start with the 104 capacitor. As you can see, there's already this switch on the board, and we already do that here in the workplace, so you don't have to do it because it's really hard. Okay, I'm gonna start with number 1 on the list, and this is the 104 yellow small non-polarized capacitor, and we have 2 of those. So if you look, you're gonna find 2 in the bag. Here, there's 2. And the capacitors go in the board on place C3 and C4. And that is over here, over there, and over here. Then you can flip it around, bend the legs a little bit, and then you can solder them. Like that. Just solder really carefully, don't use too much, and it doesn't matter which way the capacitor is in the board because it's non-polarized, so that's good. Then we use our little clipper to cut the legs, and that's the first 2 components. Okay, next on the list we can see the number 102 non-polarized capacitor, so that is also a yellow small capacitor. It's in the bag, and on the list it says the board place is C9, which we can find over here. That is the most right one of those 3 small capacitors, as you can see. And it also always says on the board the number of the capacitor, so 102 is written right there, so you always know that it's the right one. And first we're gonna also do these other 2 capacitors before we solder, and the next one next to it is number 103. So I don't think you can read it, but it is this. So we're gonna put 103 next to it. Then next to that is number 333, and that is supposed to be the last yellow capacitor, but sometimes we give some extra for if you drop it and you cannot find it. So if there's still some yellow capacitors left, don't worry. Okay, we're gonna flip the board again, bend the legs like this, and solder this. Just one by one. If you do not have experience with the soldering, you can just look up some videos on YouTube that show you how to do it, and it's really easy, so don't worry. Okay, then we can cut the legs off again with the clippy. Okay, great. So those are the small non-polarized capacitors, and then we can move on the list to the resistors, the 2K resistors. They look like this. They have 3 red stripes and then 1 gold stripe. But it's also the only value we use, so there's no, you cannot accidentally get the wrong one because we only have 4 of this. So get all the 4 resistors from your bag, and to put them in the board you gotta just bend the leg like that, and the other one also like that. And then up here you can see a row of 4 resistors from their R1, R3, R4 and R5. And we're just gonna put all the resistors in there like this. Bend the legs. And this is the last one. Like that. Okay, and what I usually do is solder them one time from this side, and then you can just do one side of each resistor, and then we flip the board around, and the resistors do not fall out, because otherwise they fall, or you can bend the legs like we did with the capacitors, but this is also fine. And then we just solder the other 4 legs, and just to be sure also this one's again to have the best connection. Okay, now this is what we have. I can flip it around, cut the legs so they don't get in the way. If it is going too fast, you can pause the video and just do the step and then play it again to see what the next step is, but I'm just going fast. Okay, next on the list we have the 4.7 microfarad polarized capacitor. It says 4.7 UF pole cap on the list, and we also have 3 of these, and they look like this. So it's a polarized capacitor, which means, if you can see it, it has one leg that is longer than the other leg, and that means that the short leg is the minus. So I'm gonna explain what that means on the board. Just get the 3 capacitors from the bag, and on the list it says the places are C2, C5 and C6, and as you can see all 3 are located here on the left side of the board. And if you look closely, I think you can see it, on the left hole of each capacitor is a small plus, and like I said before, the short leg of this capacitor is minus, so that means the long leg is the plus, and so the long leg has to go in the left hole. This is other than the non-polarized capacitors. They can go like this, it doesn't matter, but these are polarized and they go in with the long leg in the plus hole. So you can put all 3 in there. They're all the same value, so it doesn't matter which one goes in which, as long as you have all 3 of them. So now we can put our finger on them so they don't fall out, flip the board, bend the legs a little bit. You can put it down and solder it like all the other components. Okay, there we go. Now the board looks like this. You can see here that the white stripe on the capacitor is all in the same direction, and so check that and cut the legs off so we can go to the next step. this board is suitable for beginners but also for more advanced people. And yeah, so it's fun for everyone because it's quite a fun and versatile instrument, so everyone can have fun making it and also playing it. Okay, next, after the 4.7 capacitor, we go to the power diode. And if you know what a diode is, you will recognize this, because this is a diode. It's a black, looks a bit like a resistor with the legs, but it has one side, over here it's on the right side of this diode, is a gray part, so it's like a band of gray around it. And this shows you the direction in which the diode has to be placed in the board. And that is, you can see it on the board at place D1, which is over there by my thumb. And also the place on the board has one white stripe. So that shows you the direction the diode has to go in. So the stripe on the diode should be pointing down just like the stripe on the board. So like I'm holding it now, I don't know if you can see it, if it focuses, but this is the direction. So make sure the stripe is pointing towards you. Then bend those legs again like the resistor, and make sure it is pointing towards you, the gray stripe, and put it in just like a resistor. I can show you from up close so you can check, because this is quite important, because if this is reversed, so if it's the other way around, it doesn't turn on. It doesn't mean that it's broken, because if you flip it, it will work, but still, this is quite important. So we put it down, and just like the resistor, you can see some of the pad, so you can solder a little bit from the front. So when you flip it around, it doesn't fall out. And I solder the other leg like that. And then we can cut it off and go to the next step. So the board should look like this right now. Check your board. Is everything in the right direction? Okay. Okay, the next step is the 3mm red LED. So a LED is a light emitting diode. So that means it also, just like a diode, has one polarity. So there's one way that you should put it in, otherwise it doesn't work. And the LED can show you this by having also one long leg, and the long leg is also the plus, just like the capacitor, and the short leg is the minus. So you can see it with this LED. This is the plus, and the LED should go in right in the middle. And if you look closely here in the middle, you can see also a small plus sign, and so the long leg should go in the hole with the plus sign, which is on the left. So put it in there and make sure the long leg is in the hole with the plus, which is on the left if you hold it like this. So flip it around, bend the legs, and solder this. Make sure the LED is like pushed in all the way, otherwise the light will go in the wrong direction. So flip it and soldering. Then cut the legs. And now it should look like this. Okay, the next step is the other LEDs that we have in the component bag. Two of them actually, and they are much bigger. They're the 10mm LED, also red. those two. And just like the small LED, they both have one long leg and one short leg. And the long leg is the plus. So the big LEDs go on these two spots, but as you can see, there's no plus sign on this side of the board. So flip it around, and there you can see the little plus. So these are, if you look very well, you can see one has the plus on this side and the other one has the plus on the other side. But we do solder the component on the front, so just look from the back and see the plus is on the left here. Then you put the LED from the front and make sure that this long leg is in the hole with the plus. So as you can see, the long leg is in the hole with the plus. Then you can bend the legs a little bit. Make sure this is pushed all the way in, so push with your thumb and then bend the legs. And then the other LED, also the long leg goes in the plus, and this one also here has the plus on this side. So then you look from the other side and just make sure you like mirror the image because it's on the other side. So just check from the back if you can actually see that the long leg is coming out of the hole with the plus next to it. Also push this in and bend the legs like that. And then we can both solder them in place. Like that. Okay. Now we can cut the legs off. If you're cutting, make sure you do not cut like all the way to the board, because that can be too close to the board and damage the pads or damage the board itself. So cut a little bit away from it, but not too much, because this is gonna stand on this side and you don't want the legs to be touching the table or something that you're working on. So cut them off, not too long, not too short. And now your board should look like this. Already much more looking like the final product. So, oops, it's the wrong way, like that. Okay. Next on the list is the chips. We're using the integrated circuits is a better word, I think. We are using two chips on this board, and one of them, this one, has 16 holes, and this one has 14 holes. So it's important that you get the socket first. So you start with the socket dip 16. You have two of these in your component bag, and usually you get one that is 16 pin and one that is 14, so you can count it. But if you do get two that are 16 pin, because it can happen that we do not have the 14 pin in stock, it doesn't matter, because we also can make it work with two 16 pins. And I'm gonna show you first the normal way, and then I'm gonna explain how it goes if you have two chip sockets that are 16 pin. So first we start with one 16 pin chip socket, and this chip socket also has a polarity, so it means it matters which way it's soldered onto the board. And the way they indicate this is with one small notch here by my thumb, and it's like a little round thing that they cut out of the plastic, so you can see it's only on this side, not on that side. So that way you can know on the board it also has a round like half circle cut out of the square shape in the white line. And if you match this round thing, I don't really know how to call it, but this thing that I just showed you, and also the thing on the board, if you put it on the same side, it is in the right direction. So that way you can know when you put the chip in later which way it has to go, because every leg does something different, and if you flip it around it might burn or not work at all. So we put this in the right way like I just told you, and then put your finger on it so it doesn't fall out, flip it, and try to push these little legs that are sticking out a little bit down, so you have like it bends a little bit and it stays in. That way it's way easier to solder it, because otherwise you need like 4 arms and we do not have that. Okay, so now we can solder this chip, all 16 pins, and just start where you want and apply the tin carefully. You don't need to use too much, but not too little also. Just solder all the pins there, one by one. Like that. You can just check if all the pins are actually soldered, because sometimes it doesn't stick very well, but as you can see this is all soldered, so that is good. Okay, now so that is the first chip socket, and then we go to the 14 pin chip socket, and this is also the same story with the little part that they cut out on the side. I think you can see it like this. On this side there's also a half round circle cut out, and which also you can see on the footprint on the board. In this case it's on the right, so we can match that by flipping this and making sure the circle cutout is on the right also, and then put it in just like the other one. Put your finger on it, flip it, and bend the legs. Just push them down a little bit. You don't need to like bend them all the way, but like this it stays in there, which is what we want. And then you can again solder the legs of the chip socket. The chips that we are using on this board is, one of them is an oscillator, and the other one, this one is a divider. So they work together in weird ways to create rhythmic and weird experimental drone sounds. It's really, you can create all kinds of sounds with these two chips, and they are really nice together. So that's what we're gonna use. Okay, so now if everything is going the right way, you should have something that looks a little bit like this, with 2 chip sockets, 3 LEDs, and all the small components on the board. The back should look a little bit like this if anybody wants to check. Okay, so now we can go to the next part on the list. And underneath IC socket DIP 14, you can see that it says IC CD4040, and this is the first chip that we're gonna put in. So look in your component bag for the chip that says CD4040. This is the chip that has 16 legs, so you can also count the legs, but just check if it says on the chip CD4040BE. If it doesn't say BE in the end, it's not too bad, because they kind of work the same, and it's not bad if it's that one. But CD4040 is really important, so check if you have CD4040. And CD4040 goes into this chip socket, and if you can see it, you can actually read it in the chip socket. You can see 4040, so that's a way to check it. Now the chips always have a little bit too wide legs to put in there directly, so you can just bend them a little bit closer to each other, but watch out that it doesn't get like all crooked, because then it's extra hard to put it in. Just push it in a little bit. And just like with the chip, what I explained earlier, there is one half circle cut out of the plastic here on the left by my thumb, and this is the way they can tell you the polarization. So just like the chip socket and the footprint on the board, you have to put the circle cutout on the left if I hold it like this, and then you can put the chip in. Make sure all the legs are in the right holes, they're not sticking out. Then you just push it in, and it should click or not. Sometimes it doesn't click, sometimes it does, so just put it in and check if it's the same as me. So I'm holding it up. Okay. Now the other chip, which is the other chip that you have in your component bag. There's only 2 chips, so this should be the right one, and it's called CD4093. So check if the chip says CD4093. Like this one. I don't think you can read it, but maybe you can. And just like the other one, bend the legs in a little bit. Just push on it. And also, just like the other one, make sure the half circle cut out over there on the left is lined up with the half circle cut out on the chip. And so if you hold it like this, it should be on the right. And then we put this chip in, make sure all the legs are in there. Can be a little bit fidgeting and just going back and forth a little bit, but don't push on it if one leg is sticking out, because then the leg can break off or be damaged. So make sure everything is like almost in there and then push on it. Okay, so now the board should look like this. Okay, then we go to the next part on the list, and as you can see underneath IC CD4093 it says 10K potentiometer. So we have 4 potentiometers in our component bag. They look like this. The value is 10K, so that means the resistance, the maximum resistance these can give is 10K ohm. So we have 4 of them, as you can see. Just put them next to your board. And the place that they have to go in is this, 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 and this. So I think it's very recognizable that they should go there, but just to be sure. And all four are the same, so it doesn't matter if you put this one here or here or here. So just pick one up. Make sure these three legs are a little bit even. Sometimes they can be a little bit like this, and it makes it harder to put in, so just bend them a little bit like that. And if you try to put it in, it can sometimes be a little bit hard. This one went in all the way the first time, so that's good. But if it goes a little bit hard, these two legs are for stability, but they can be a little bit too wide, like to the side. So you can push them in a little bit like this, which makes it a lot easier to put it in the board. So make sure all three legs, all three of this, are in the three little holes on the board. And then push it in. Okay, now the fourth one, also bend the legs a little bit and click it in there. So they should be in like this. Check if they're all straight, because if, for example, one is like this, I think you can see it, this is not straight. And if you solder it, then the front panel will not fit. So push it in. And if you want to be really sure, you can get the front panel, which is also comes in the bag, and just slide it over, see if it fits, and if that's okay, you know they're in there in the right way. So these potentiometers, because they click, they cannot fall out if we flip it. So just flip the board and get your soldering iron. And here I will point to them first. Here are the three legs. Here are three legs. Here are three legs. And here are three legs. So we're gonna solder those legs all one by one. Just, you can use a little bit more tin, because it's important that this part is very well connected, because it will matter in the resistance. So just use a little bit extra tin and maybe hold your iron on there a little bit longer, so everything is really flowy and well connected. I also use a little metal sponge. If you sometimes hear like this sound, it's cleaning the soldering iron, and I would advise to do that once in a while, because it can get a little bit dirty, and which makes the soldering harder and also more likely to do something wrong. So the last three legs like this. Everything is connected very well. Okay. If you use a little bit too much, like sometimes this happens, I can show you. If you look here, the two legs here are now accidentally connected. It can happen if you use a little bit too much, and if that, which is a problem, because it will change the potentiometer, and sometimes it doesn't work. So make sure that is not happening, and if it is, just put it in the middle of the two pins and then like drag it away from there, and do that until all the pins are not connected to each other and just soldered on the board. Don't heat it too much, because it will get like brown and stuff, so just do quick and then pull away from it so it will free the legs. Okay, now we can flip the board, and then I always check one more time with the front panel if the potentiometers are correctly placed, so they're not crooked, not sticking out the wrong direction. And then flip it again, and then because we checked it, we can solder the other two bigger legs of each potentiometer, and these are actually only for extra stability, so you cannot like bend the potentiometer, so they're not connected to anything, but it's good to solder them so everything is more stable. So just solder all this one, 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 and this one. You don't have to use like a lot of tin because it can be a little bit wasteful because the tin is expensive, but just put a little bit so they are connected and cannot be ripped off the board. Like this. Okay, so now these are very sturdy, you cannot move them, you cannot like accidentally pull it out of the board, and the board should look like this now with the potentiometers on it. So we're already quite far into the whole instrument, and now we're gonna go to the next step. After the potentiometers, we're gonna put in the tonkikon, which is the jack, the 3.5 millimeter mono jack. You will find it in the bag with a screw on there, sometimes not, sometimes there's a screw on there, but take the screw off if it's on there, otherwise don't worry. Just take it off, put it to the side or put it in the bag again. And this is what your jack should look like before soldering. And this jack has 3 legs, one over here, one over here, one over here. And the only thing that matters right now is this long leg is the minus and this leg is the plus. And if you look on the board, the jack is gonna go over here. And if you can see, there's 2 holes pretty close to each other, and that is for the minus and the other leg, and then the plus leg will go in the right hole. So this is the right orientation for this part. Check if you also have this the other way around. It's hard to do it wrong because it will not fit, so I think it will be alright. So try to fit it in there. If it feels wrong, it's probably wrong because it fits really nicely. Okay, and this is gonna fall out if you flip this, so what I do usually is solder this minus leg, which you can see here from the front, so it does not fall out, but be careful that you do not melt any plastic, so you can like flip it so it makes it easier, and just solder only this leg on the board, and then you can check right away if the jack is pushed in there all the way, and you can see that it is not crooked or like it can be sticking out like this, for example, like this, and which means it will be crooked and the front panel does not fit. So just make sure it is like pushed down on the board like this and it fits in there nicely. Then flip it around, and the other 2 legs over there and over there, solder them. this and like this. Also, you can check the third one that we already did, so from the back, so it's also soldered well. Just check them all, and that's that. It's easy. So from the front it looks like this now with the jack on there. This is the output of the instrument, so quite important, and I think you will notice if you don't have it in the end because you cannot listen to it. So okay, and then on the list after Donkey Kong it says on off switch, but as I told you in the start, this is the on off switch, and we already soldered it on the board because it's a little bit tricky with the part and the footprint. They don't fit very well, but it works very good, but it's a little bit hard. So we already did it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. So you can skip that part and go to the last part on the first section of the list, which is the DC power jack, which looks like this. So you can find it in your bag. And as you can see, again, we have a long leg, short leg situation over here. But this time, to make it really hard, it's like a challenge. But this time, this component, the long leg, is the minus, and the short leg is the plus. So this is kind of confusing because the LEDs and the capacitors have it the other way around, these. But the power jack is different, so pay attention. The long leg is the minus and the short leg is the plus. So this is quite important because it will not turn on if it's the other way, and it's quite hard to take it off and flip it. So extra double triple check this. The long leg is the minus and the short leg is the plus. So then we look over here on the board where the part is supposed to go, and we can see there's like multiple times the left hole has a plus written by it and the right hole has a minus written by it. So check that on your board, and so that means if the long leg is a minus, it should go on in like this. So check it 3 times. The long leg should go in the right hole. If your board is like this, the long leg should go in the right hole. So put it in there. And this can be a little bit tricky sometimes to solder because it's really loose and it will fall out easy. So just put your finger on it, but make sure, because the holes are so big, it can sort of like go more to the left, more to the right. So kind of make sure that it stays in the middle a little bit. Then put your finger on it, flip it, and try to bend the legs a little bit like that. Or if that doesn't, because they're a little bit stiff, I always get like a small part of my tin just laying on a surface or something. Then you hold your hand on it like this, so you have the leg sticking out on the back side, and here's my little piece of tin, so it's just there, and then I can hold my soldering iron to the part and just use this as like a third arm. But if you have an actual third arm or like a helping tool, you can also just clip this in somewhere and then use your iron to melt the tin on the part. And now the other leg is not soldered yet. Oh, I hope this was in the camera. Yeah, I think so. So now this leg is half soldered, but that means it will stay in. And now we can just flip it a little bit and see if it actually is in the middle, if it's not crooked, if it's not like sticking out, it should be pushed down all the way, sitting on the board. And if that's all correct, we can solder the other leg also. This part has really big holes, so you can use a little bit more tin than usual. If you're soldering this leg, for example, and then you switch too fast to the other leg, it can fall out completely because they're both like melted, and then it will just fall out. So just solder one, wait 5 seconds, and then solder the other, so it does not fall out and you have to start over with soldering. So just like this, and check once again if you have the long leg in the same spot as me, which is the correct way, and if everything is in the middle like this. So as you can see, there are no open holes anymore, so this means we have finished all the soldering parts, and it should look like this. So I'm holding it up to the camera so you can check if everything you have is in the right place and in the right direction. Check from the back. Check if you soldered all these pins really well. If you can see that there's a little bit separation between the pin and the pad, you can just reflow it with your soldering iron or use a little bit more tin on there so everything has a solid connection. Okay, now we can start with the assembly of the whole module with the front panel, or the whole instrument. And that starts with the front panel. So get your front panel from the bag, and this front panel will go on like this eventually, but to hold it in place we need some spacers in all the corners so it's stable on there, it doesn't like is on there crooked and everything is straight. So just put the instrument away a little bit, and this front panel has 4 holes in the corners, and we're gonna screw some spacers in there. So get the nylon black M3 screws that come with the module. You should have 8, but we give 9 or 10, so if you drop one you're not fucked. So get the nylon M3 screws and just put it in the corner here, get one. Then get the spacer. We have every bag has 4 spacers, they're 10 millimeters, and just screw the spacer in the plastic screw, and just by holding your thumb on the screw you can actually screw it quite tight because it's plastic and it doesn't slip too much. Then get the next screw, put it in the other corner, and get the next spacer, and repeat this 4 times. If it does slip, you can just get one of these flat screwdrivers or Phillips screwdrivers and just tighten it, but it doesn't need to be on very tight. You will just damage the plastic if you do it too tight. So just put it in there, hand tight. Also the 4th one, and that's the last spacer. Okay, so this should look like this now, with 4 spacers in each corner. So now if you get your instrument and you put the front panel on there, you can feel that it's like sturdy, it fits every part, and that is how it's supposed to be, so that is good. Now we see, okay, so now we can actually already screw this, put this on there like I just did, and then we have 4 more nylon screws in the bag, and if you flip it, there's 4 more holes where you have to screw a nylon screw in, so get the last nylon screws, and just sometimes it needs a little wiggling from the front panel to align the holes correctly. This one goes a little bit harder, so I just suggest you get the screwdriver for this and just screw it in, also not so tight that it will damage the screw. Then we go to the next corner and repeat this step. Like this, we need a little bit wiggling or like pushing on it to align the holes, and screw it in. Like that. Repeat this for the other 2 corners. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get the screw to grip in the spacer, but if you just wiggle it around, you will get it. And then the last corner. Yes, so screw it in, hand tight, like this. So the bottom should look like this with 4 screws in every corner of this square, and the top should look like this. So everything is coming together, and now we actually have something that looks a lot like the finished product, and the only thing that we need to add is a nut for the jack. This is also comes with the components, and you just screw it on the 3.5mm mono output. Also doesn't need to be very tight, just make sure that it doesn't rattle, and just hand tight like this. And last, we have a little button which will fit on the on-off button. It has a square or a long square, I don't know what it's called, on the bottom, and that will fit on the on-off switch, so it's easier and more beautiful. Just align the squares and push it on there, and then you can try. As you can see, if you push it in and out, it should click. Okay, and now we get to the last part, which is the potentiometer knobs. We have these really nice big black knobs which look really beautiful, and they have a white dot on there, as you can see, and the dot will, if you turn it, you can see in which direction the potentiometer is. So turn all the potentiometers all the way to the left, so just turn them like this, so they're all the way to the left, and then you get the knob pointing this way, so it's like the start point of the potentiometer, and then you just click it on there and make sure they're all the same way on there, so they're all pointing in like diagonally to the left corner, so this line. And the last one. Okay. Now check if they are turning well, if they have too much friction with the board. You can just try to lift it a little bit so it turns more freely. And this is actually the end of this instrument. If it looks like this, you're done, and then we're gonna go.
Very good job, Eefje.
Yes.
Very good job. Okay, everybody, so this is it. Yes, the touchable synthesizer, the nano synth, the blind noise nano. Yes. What's important to know also, the back is a kind of iron here. So it comes with things that you can plug here.
Oh, yeah.
Then it have some distance from the table. I will.
Yeah, they also come with
Like that.
we got 4 of them, so everyone gets 4 of these plastic legs. And then before we put that on, we have to make sure no metal part is sticking out too much. So as you can see here, this is sticking
Maybe we
out.
should do it. Maybe we should do it.
But then we cut it first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so cut all the long things like this power jack. Just cut it off. And these potentiometer things, you can cut it off like this. And I think that is the most important. Or this jack you can also cut short a little bit, as long as it doesn't touch the floor after we put on these. So we're gonna put them here, right?
Yes, in every corner.
Here,
Yes, very
So.
good.
here one, here one, here.
Yeah, very good.
Last this one. So if you use it on a metal surface, it will not conduct anything, and it will not mess up the circuit or make a short circuit or anything. So as you can see, nothing is longer than the plastic legs, which means nothing will touch the ground when you put it like this.
Perfect. What's also important is the power is the plus in the middle, so center positive. It comes with a battery clip for 9 volt for this part, but you can power it. You can buy it also in the shop, the power supply, but you can also buy it on eBay, or maybe you have it. So it's not the same as the guitar pedal. It's the different. It's the plus in the middle and not the minus in the middle. It's really nice actually to use it in a guitar pedal. It's really cool to use it in delays and this kind of stuff to making soundscapes. Remember, this is a mono jack output. Watch out if you use headphone, because it can be hard. And if you use it, use a converter for mono to big jack in your delay or your guitar pedals, and you can play really nice. There are a lot of movies how to use this one on the internet, and people do a lot of things with it. It comes in different colors. We also have a red one, as you see. It depends. And there are limited editions with special knobs, with key chords and more. Yeah, I want to thank Eefje for this this whole thing, because it takes quite long and it's a lot of work. If people have questions, you can always contact us about this machine. Also, schools and universities, we can do the workshop also online or with this movie, or we go there and do it live. That's also possible. Yeah. Thank you for watching, everybody. Do you like to say something, Eefje, still?
Thank you for listening, and I hope it works.
Yes.
Yeah, you can check the other videos if it has the same sound, and if it's the same, then it works.
Exactly. Yes, and also make your neighbors happy. So don't make them mad. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye bye.